you decide to go into helping people with dementia?
Yeah, I think there's different levels to that question, but yeah, I've always liked helping people, and I worked for a mobile library service, and typically people you meet are often older, elderly people, and I think they just really wanted a chat, and it was social more than anything, even though you'd give them some books and stuff. And then I came across a care home and I delivered the books and the audio tapes to them. Then that's when I first sort of encountered people with dementia, in that kind of setting. And then when I moved to York, I needed a job, and because the care sector is, unfortunately, the standards are not great in a lot of places, it's easy to get a job. So I did get a job in a care home, and I really enjoyed the work. I realised quite quickly that it's it can be so rewarding, and you can meet people where they're at. It can be really profound. So that's why I like it.
I'm sure not a lot of people have heard of cognitive rehabilitation. Are you going to be able to sort of take your message further around? Are you going to go to different cities, or would you have plans to expand it so other people can benefit?
Yeah, well, that would be the ideal, because it's, like you say, it's really accessible. We know from years of research that it's been going on for decades actually, that this way of working is really helpful for people with dementia to function better, and regain independence or learn new things. We know from all that research that can be really helpful approach to people. So we've been lucky enough to get some funding from the National Lottery to work just in York and the surrounding villages for about 3 years. There's definitely a push to help people with dementia become, the best version of themselves, as independent as they possibly can, as opposed to the old way, which was doing things for people that they, when they were struggling with something, somebody, a carer or some other practitioner would step in and take over that task for them. Whereas now we know that's not necessary, and that people with dementia can do much more for themselves. So that's why I think this is a really good approach, and I think doing these videos hopefully going to spread the word, and other people can look into it and train themselves in it.
Yeah. How long did it take for me to get to this stage from when I first met you?
Yeah, you and I worked together for about eight weeks.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a long time, is it?
No. Yeah.
And for such a big difference, blimey, I was blown away. How could I get it across to other friends and people apart from talking?
Yeah, to spread the word about it.
Yeah, how can...
There's a couple of ways at the moment. I think one way is to, there's a manual, that's like a self-help manual that's been created by people with dementia and researchers. It's called My Life, My Goals. And that's, you don't need a practitioner like me to help. You can just download the resource, it's like a workbook, and then just work through it gradually at your own pace. And you come up with your own goals. It's similar, it's not the same as working with a practitioner, but it could be really useful to some people. You can pass on our details if they live in York, but if they don't, then it's a case of trying to spread the word with people who work in the dementia field, and telling them about this way of working.
Right.
Yeah, and then that there's such a lot behind it, that makes it that we know it's really valuable. Things like the World Alzheimer's Report this year was all about rehabilitation for people with dementia. So there's definitely a push to try and make a change, like a cultural change. In how we support people. Just contact me by going, or my colleagues, by going to the Partners in Dementia website, which is www.partnersindementia.org. partnersindementia.org, and then there's all the information is on there. Cognitive rehabilitation, like you said, is very tailored to each individual. It works with, or it takes account of their strengths and their existing skills, and utilises them to to plan, come up with goals to work towards that are really important for them. And then the practitioner will help the person work towards those goals really gradually, in a gradual way, so that they build confidence as they achieve one step at a time, which I think is really helpful. I've seen the confidence grow in people as you're working in that way. And then you introduce different rehabilitation strategies. So for Karen, there was one around, so when she was struggling with the door handle, we would practice it in a very specific way using a mnemonic, which is like a memorable phrase, and we used, something that would help remind you of what it is that we're trying to do. So in Karen's case, it was lift, lock, left, something like that, wasn't it? Lift, left, lock. So you'd have to lift up the handle to the left in order to lock it, and there'd be other things that we learned like a bit later. But then another aspect of what we did was something called expanding rehearsal, which is just every time you practice something, you increase the time in between you're practicing, and the aim is to get to about 20 minutes, and then it's supposed to be embedded in your long-term memory, and then you can access it more readily. So things like that are quite commonplace, but there's other strategies that you would use depending on what the person's strengths are, and what their history has been, what's familiar to them. There's a whole range of sort of considerations. Dementia is just an umbrella term. It just describes a syndrome, a collection of behaviours, issues that affect all the different types of dementias, which are all, there's over 100 different types of diseases that lead to these symptoms of dementia. So Alzheimer's being the most common one, but then you've got others like vascular dementia and Lewy body dementia. Those are the most well-known ones. The most common symptoms for Alzheimer's are memory loss, sometimes confusion, sometimes can be verbal difficulties, remembering words, remembering names, and then always functioning, is affected. So that's why cognitive rehabilitation is so important, because it targets functioning and helps address that problem that's so common. And it can be adapted throughout the journey, so it's something that you could return to. It's not a one-off thing you would do once. You could apply cognitive rehabilitation many, many times with somebody, given they have the right support. That's what we want to build on and try and get to that place where we can be supporting people in that way. We've been working with cognitive rehabilitation since about 2013. We got a grant, 2023, we got a grant just to trial it. So we did a small study, a piece of, trialing it to see if we could help people, because we knew it had been worked in research, and we knew it worked very well for people in the research conditions, but we didn't know if we could deliver it in a way that was helpful to people ourselves. So we worked with 18 people with dementia in 2023 to 2024, and they told us that it was very helpful and people improved their functioning. I think the potential for it to grow is still pretty enormous, because it's so under. The funding is not there. It's not been allocated to rehabilitation in dementia. It's allocated for more traditional ways of working. But cognitive rehabilitation isn't. It makes sense economically, because you compare somebody who's struggling perhaps to make a meal for themselves. You could either get somebody to support them with cognitive rehabilitation for just 8 weeks, and then get them to a place where they're sorting their own food out, making a meal for themselves, compared to somebody who doesn't get that approach. They get the traditional ways where you get carers coming in, and that's just indefinite. So the costs are, so different. Cognitive rehab is economically a really good choice as well. We know that through research, people who receive cognitive rehabilitation for a bit more intensely than we deliver it now, but they delayed moving into a care home by 6 months, and that's actually a big thing. Yeah, I mean, there are on the horizon treatments that seem to be really effective for treating Alzheimer's and reversing even, but they're not being really acknowledged by mainstream for whatever reason. But in the interim, if we can help people with dementia maximise what they can do for themselves, then that's a really good position, that we can aim for. That's perhaps the best we can hope for at the moment. So if we can just help to make that more commonplace, more mainstream, then I think that would be really valuable.